And Cyprus is a natural choice for British nationals as well, driving at the same side of the road. English is, of course, widely spoken. There is the history over time with British nationals choosing Cyprus as a retirement place. I'm really surprised by the sheer number of inquiries we've had over the last few months.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Cyprus, brought to you by Dominica Group. I am Alexandros Tsangaridis,
I'm Kyriakos Charalambos.
and today we're talking about Cyprus's legal landscape with Demetris Demetriades. Dimitri, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much for having me, Alexandros and Gyriakos. It's a real privilege being here today because I had the opportunity to watch the other podcasts and I thought that you had some brilliant content. So I feel very honored that you have chosen me as well to add to this collection.
Thank you for your time.
Dimitri, I know why we chose you with your wealth of knowledge and extensive experience, but just to let everybody know as well, could you please briefly tell us a few words about yourself, about your firm, and your experience in the market so far?
Yes, of course. So my name is Demetris Demetriades. I am a business lawyer. I started my career as a litigation lawyer, being a qualified barrister, but fortunately, over the years, I was able to move on into business law, relocation, immigration, conveyancing. I'm also the managing partner of Andreas Demetriades & Co. LLC, a law firm that was set up 55 years ago. And I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a team of smart and efficient lawyers and support colleagues that help individuals and companies navigate Cyprus legal landscape.
Thank you. So you are here to be interrogated by Alexandros, and I'm going to try to ease
Please,
the pressure.
fire away, I'm ready.
So, with your extensive experience, how has Cyprus's legal framework evolved to attract international investors seeking tax residency and non-dom status?
That's a very good question. Undoubtedly, tax residence and non-dom are one of the two of the key areas that attract people into Cyprus. Cyprus is not just a beautiful island with warm people and great lifestyle. It also offers unique advantages when it comes to tax residence, and also the fact that by acquiring the tax residence and later the non-dom status, it carries with it significant tax advantages for those who make that choice. For example, those who make Cyprus their place of tax residence do not have to pay taxes on their dividends. They have significant advantages when it comes to income from other sources. But most importantly, in my opinion, is the fact that just by spending 60 days in Cyprus, you can have the benefit of being a tax resident, which is something that is quite unique for Cyprus. We've seen that more and more over the years with many European nationals choosing Cyprus as a place of tax residence, especially from Germany, for example. We've had a significant number over the last few years of German nationals choosing Cyprus. Also now, lately, with the developments that we've had in the UK and the massive exodus of individuals who are enjoying the great lifestyle of the UK, not the weather though, we've seen more and more people now choosing Cyprus as their place of relocation, exactly to enjoy the benefits of being non-domiciled. Now, just to add a bit more flesh into the whole tax residence and non-dom, it allows people to have this status for a period of 17 years.
Quite long, to be honest.
Which is a significant amount of time. What I've noticed recently, also, which makes it quite interesting, is the fact that not only the foreign nationals who are based in the UK are choosing Cyprus for tax residence and non-dom, but also UK nationals, which is something new to me. I think that there's a trend now in the UK for people who are paying significant amount of taxes to seek alternative jurisdictions. And Cyprus is a natural choice for British nationals as well, driving at the same side of the road. English is, of course, widely spoken. There is the history over time with British nationals choosing Cyprus as a retirement place. I'm really surprised by the sheer number of inquiries we've had over the last few months.
You're raising some very interesting points, and basically, it's something that we see here as a developer as well. I mean, at Domenica Group, you touched on some European nationals, and I was telling Alexandros about a story that I was actually in Warsaw, not for work, and I met this guy, business owner in Poland, that actually he's a tax resident here, and he mentioned how it was easy for him because he travels a lot and it didn't require like that many days, 60 as you mentioned, and enjoyed all the benefits while still doing business the way that pretty much he used to do. But going back to the UK, since you raised the point, because right, so we have in mind Europeans and non-EU, but the UK is now obviously not part of the EU. Um, but for some of the impacts on business owners, on businesses in general, there are changes that are relatively new, and maybe that's why people only now started to react to it. So, could you please briefly explain why do you believe they have started looking into Cyprus? Is it just like a way back into Europe, or is it something else? And based on like the conversations you're having with them, what are like the key factors that are pushing them to look to our little island again?
That's quite interesting that you mentioned businesses because um, tax residence and non-dom go hand in hand with the business facilitation unit. Now, the business facilitation unit is, frankly, is one of the greatest attractions for business to set up um, operations in Cyprus. And the reason is that if you are a third country national who wishes to set up a company in Cyprus and work legally via the BFU, he can set up a company. And if he uses an operating capital of 200,000 euros into the company bank account, which will be used for business purposes, he is allowed to employ third country nationals, which is an amazing advantage. And we're not talking about a limit as to the number of employees you can have. Of course, there are other conditions attached. The gross salary of the highly skilled employee must be 2,500. But other than that, I wouldn't say that there are many conditions attached. So what does that mean? It means that he can set up operations in Cyprus. He can benefit from the low taxation rate of 12.5%. He also becomes a tax resident non-dom. There is no defense tax paid on his dividends. He has also a tax allowance, a discount on the income tax, which ranges from 50% to 20%, depending on the income bracket. Hence, in my opinion, the business facilitation unit is another huge advantage for third country nationals, which of course includes the UK nowadays. And it's amazing because just with the 200,000 operation capital, that is just the beginning for Cyprus. Let us not forget that these people not only work here, but also they need a place to stay. They are contributing to the economy by with their living expenses. They're putting their kids into education, either private schools or even public schools, which are of a very high standard in Cyprus. A lot of them are amazed by the fact that they are entitled also to supported medical care via the general health service
Very important.
that we
Very
provide. So, what we've seen over the last few years is a growth in the number of business people that decide to set up in Cyprus. And I think that's also a knock-on effect from the COVID times.
Yeah.
That's when people suddenly realize that, hang on a minute, I can actually work from anywhere.
I don't need to be here.
Yes, I don't need to be here.
Yeah.
I think it was a great discovery for all of us that suddenly, yes, we can actually do business with an internet connection and a laptop. It doesn't actually require physical presence in a country. And that led to a huge growth in this particular sector.
Yeah, you're right. And you touched on good points on how it can indirectly help the economy of Cyprus. We have discussed it here with other guests as well about it's not just I'm coming to Cyprus and why am I giving them a reduced tax? Well, I'm obviously giving them a reduced tax to basically give them another incentive to come. But then the business itself, the people that it employs here, all the people that it brings with it, operations wise, other employees, etc. Obviously, their spending helps the economy overall. But in my humble opinion, it's not just that. It actually affects the whole fabric of our society. Because undoubtedly, even in our little Paphos, we see it has become way more multinational. You go outside and you listen to interesting conversations of people that they have different like backgrounds and they don't all think the same way, which inevitably it's a problem that typically you face in smaller communities. Now, our community might still be small, but let's not forget that about half of the people that live, especially in Paphos, are not born and raised here.
100%. I think that we are developing a much wider international outlook via the sheer number of people who are choosing Cyprus and Paphos, more and more nowadays, Paphos, to set up business and to bring knowledge and growth in various sectors like technology, for example. Another huge advantage that Cyprus offers is the reduced taxation where it comes to intellectual property, the IP box regime.
Yeah.
Again, we've seen many investors who develop intellectual property setting up base in Cyprus with research and development to benefit from the rules that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, Cyprus is not just all about the sun and the sea. We have moved further than that. Whereas traditionally, I've been working as a lawyer for 30 years now. Hence, I have seen how we've developed from the traditional retirement place for the pensioners, who, by the way, enjoy significant tax advantages with a tax rate of 5%. And we've managed to expand and build on that and attract younger people, families who are active in the community as well and pay taxes and social insurances and so forth.
It's true. It's true because I don't think if we only stayed at the sun, we could have achieved the development that we see, right? However, because in this podcast we try not to only touch on the good things, and we're gonna go to basically what I wanna bring you a few years back to an era that you probably remember way better than us because you were
Because I'm older.
wiser. I was
Not
gonna
that
say.
necessarily
much.
wiser.
Not that much.
But yeah, but it was an era that you were active, and obviously I'm referring to an era where touching on the British nationals, for example, on the period I would say, let's say 10, 15 years ago, when maybe a bit more than that, but yeah,
Maybe a bit more than
maybe
that.
more than that. When there was several issues related to the process of buying a property in Cyprus. So that's number one. Part of the question is to touch a bit on that. What were those issues and why some people are still to date a bit careful? And two, from a legal standpoint, explain to us what steps did Cyprus take to make things a bit better today And lastly, the third part of my question, if now you believe the whole process is robust.
That's an interesting question because it touches upon quite a few issues. So I know this is a podcast, and we're all happy and merry, and we are discussing about the advantages of Cyprus. But yes, in the past, there are a few horror stories of people who were buying property off plan, and they were not adequately protected by the legal framework that was applicable at the time. Mind you, though, those issues could have been avoided if these people had the right legal guidance at the time. So we shouldn't just blame the legal framework.
But
Having said that, the state has introduced further safeguards in the process of purchasing property, and I will elaborate a little bit here. Now, the few horror stories that we have over the years are with people purchasing off-plan properties which were burdened with pre-existing mortgages from developers. Now, this is not something that happens often, but indeed in the past, it did happen to a great number of people. Fortunately, the state did not turn a blind eye to those cases, and they introduced the so-called trapped buyers legislation that disengaged from that trapped people were trapped. Thousands of people who were able to receive their title deeds, even though there were pre-existing mortgages filed on their properties.
At this point, let's say that it happens also to Cypriots, not only.
Of
Happen a
course,
lot.
yes. There was no differentiation between the nationality. Cyprus as well burned the fingers in those particular circumstances. So the state did come afterwards. They passed the Trabais legislation, which assisted thousands of people to obtain their title deeds. Mind you, that law was judged to be unconstitutional recently. And again, the state is looking at ways so as to assist those few hundred people who are still in that process.
it's a good development, though, from a few thousands to a few hundreds.
Absolutely. Therefore, what I see is a situation whereby people who were prejudiced by lack of clarity in the system at the time, the state came, assisted them. But what have they done today? Nowadays, when you're buying a property off plan, if there is a mortgage, there are clear processes in place whereby the purchaser needs to be made aware. He needs to acknowledge it. He needs to sign a declaration whereby he clearly declares that he's buying a property that is mortgaged. Also, a search from the land registry, a recent search of the land registry must form part of the contract. Therefore, again, the purchaser has a clear picture of the agreement that he's entering into. So I think that's a significant development. Now, what still needs to change? Quite a few things. I think part of the problem in Cyprus is that we do not have a speedy process of issuing separate title deeds. There are so many stages starting from the completion of the property to the issue of separate title deeds that it takes bloody too long, really. And that's not good for the purchasers. Now, we've seen recently new processes being introduced whereby planning permits will be issued faster. And also there is developments that are being put into a legal framework, but still obviously have not been voted, which will significantly limit the time scale that takes for the issue of separate title deeds. I think this is really the next step that they need to be looking into.
Because, like, I can tell you as a developer, right? Sometimes is what you very well said. Like, the process is such that never mind how proactive you want to be, and timely in terms of your applications, it can take a while. Yes, it's taking less than what it used to, 100%. And I actually see the implications of what you're saying in the sense that typically when we discuss with buyers from abroad and they have how am I protected against X, Y, and Z, actually no, there are protection, like there are things to tell them that about
We
this you're
have the
protected in this.
answers.
Yeah, of course it's not perfect and nowhere is perfect. Personally, I can tell you that I made an investment in the UK and I got burned, and theoretically that's but it happens, right? And yes, you said the first step is to choose the right partners. Choose developers like Domenica Group, as the mugs brought to you by your favorite Alexandros today say, or lawyers like Dimitri. But yeah, I mean, we are not here to tap on our backs. It's basically the aim is to discuss about these issues.
I mean, like you very well said, there are pitfalls in buying real estate everywhere in the world. But we want to be here in Cyprus. We want to be among the best. We want to be the safest destination for investors. And that's what we're aiming at, not only as professionals and as the private sector, but also I believe that the state has a clear direction into achieving that. Um, Personally, my dream is to have a process in place whereby with the touch of a button we will be able to transfer title deeds and do all the searches and complete processes via computers without having to rely in slow bureaucracy and wasting time and money. So this is something that I'm hoping to see in the future. Now, as we were
We
discussing
said,
before,
yeah,
actually,
before we start,
Alexandros, that
like 20 years ago, it was faster.
well, yes. I mean, so there's a bit of a paradox nowadays. Even though we have a quite advanced online system with the land registry, which allows us to do searches and order title deeds and complete quite a number of tasks online, we have gone from completing a transfer of title deed transaction at the land registry in one day to putting your papers in and then waiting for 30 days to get an appointment to do your transaction. So, on the one hand, we have digitalization and a lot of processes being completed online in seconds. But then we have an increase of 30 days in completing a transfer of title deed transaction.
Why is that, do you think? It's due to number of the applications of the...
Well, I guess one factor is the increase in transactions, and we've seen the latest numbers. Again, when you compare the statistics, the number of contracts of sale has increased significantly. So yes, there is an increase of real estate transactions happening in Cyprus on nearly on a year-to-year basis. But this is really not the reason. I think that it has to do with archaic procedures that they still have within those departments that are causing delays. Furthermore, it would be correct also to say that they're being much more careful now in the way they carry on these transactions.
Hey, right. And if you ask anybody that had issues in the past, is it okay if you wait a month or two more, but be more safeguarded? They will for sure say,
Of course.
yeah, I don't mind waiting a bit
course.
more if.
Yeah, but it would be great if we
But-
could just bring it all together.
Yeah.
Look-
Speed and safety.
You're right. And okay, to be fair, there are, several steps taken now to make things faster as well. Digitalization, as you said. And okay, let's face it, when you digitalize government at the extent that we're trying to digitalize it now, it's inevitable that in the first year, if not S, you're gonna have some issues. Now, you can say that this should have happened, a few years ago, but nevertheless, better late than never in some aspects. Because in other aspects, we are, way more advanced than what people expect us to be. So, unfortunately, real estate transactions is, a field that works in a very old school, if I might say, way still. But
Well, I mean, let us not forget that it's people's money here.
Yeah, correct.
There has to be as much safety as possible in completing real estate transactions. However, there is a lot of room for improvement. Let's put it that way. And I'm hopeful that within the next few years they will find ways, to complete the sale and purchase transactions at the land registry at a much quicker time scale, and B, to introduce even more technology into the process so that we are able to do this in a much more efficient way. Another great issue that we have in Cyprus is the inconsistency between several entities involved in the process when it comes to the anti-money laundering process. Now, for an investor to come to Cyprus, obviously he needs to transfer his money from abroad into the country. And to do that, there will be several professionals involved. There will be the bank, there will be the lawyer, there might be even two banks involved. Now, the paradox that we have is that each professional, each bank needs to perform anti-money laundering checks again and again and again. There is no uniform register, let's say, where we could perform these anti-money laundering checks once, and it would apply to everyone. And I think this definitely is a huge waste of time, energy, and money, and it's something that needs to be addressed.
Because a guy, it's either clean or not, right? So it should be.
Whereas now, the lawyer, of course, who is a responsible entity, must perform the anti-money laundering checks. Then the banking institution into which the money is being paid into, again, has to perform anti-money laundering checks. Then the other bank, if it's a different bank that is receiving the money, again, has to perform anti-money laundering check. And at the end of the day, they're all doing exactly the same thing. So, yes, there's a lot of things that can be done, in my opinion, to change.
Demetris, thank you very much for today. We could have been discussing for hours about these matters. But yeah, thank you for your insights. To be completely honest, it's actually a couple of things that I even didn't know and learned today. So just a closing remark from you, if you would like.
Well, I mean, first of all, I would like to thank you both for inviting me today. I think a closing remark would be that Cyprus offers incredible opportunities. But at the same time, legal clarity is very important in any successful transaction. Hence, I urge people to always have expert guidance and advice when they're embarking in investment in a foreign country. And we're here for you for any support that you need, of course.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you again.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for spending the time to listen to what we said, and see you on the next episode. Thank you.